Have you ever had one of those days where reality itself seems to be glitching? It's not a major catastrophe, just a series of small, frustrating misalignments. The coffee spills on your shirt right before a big meeting. The bus you never miss pulls away just as you arrive. A casual comment from a friend cuts deeper than it should. We're taught to chalk these moments up to bad luck or random chaos in an indifferent world. But what if they aren't random at all? What if these are not signs of a malevolent universe, but the first subtle error messages from your own internal operating system? A system that has been trying to get your attention, warning you that a background process is consuming far too many resources and a system failure is imminent. Before you get on board with the idea of a cosmic postman delivering little warning notes to your doorstep, let's reframe this entire concept. The intelligence that guides you is not some distant external force. It is far more intimate and infinitely more powerful. It is your own internal guidance system, IGS, the combined, sophisticated intelligence of your intuition, your nervous system, and your body's innate wisdom. This system doesn't send signs in the mystical sense. It provides you with clear, undeniable feedback data through the very fabric of your experience. And when you are moving in a direction that is out of alignment with your core values, when you are pushing against the current of your own nature, your IGS begins to register the discrepancy. This is where we encounter our first layer of understanding, rooted in cognitive psychology. The constant, grinding feeling of resistance and exhaustion you experience is not the universe punishing you. It is the immense psychological cost of cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is the state of mental stress and discomfort experienced by an individual who holds conflicting beliefs, ideas, or values at the same time, or is confronted by new information that conflicts with existing beliefs. In simpler terms, it's the internal friction created when your actions are not in harmony with your truth. Living out of alignment is not a passive state. It's an incredibly energy-intensive one. Imagine driving a car with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake. You can move forward, but the strain on the engine is enormous. The grinding of the gears, the smell of burning oil that is the feeling of cognitive dissonance in your life. It is a massive, invisible tax on your mental and emotional resources. Paid every single day, you continue on a path that is not truly yours. Your soul knows one truth, but your ego is performing another, and your system is paying the price for that internal conflict. Your internal guidance system is designed to be incredibly efficient. It whispers before it shouts. It nudges before it pushes. It sends subtle alerts before it initiates a forced shutdown. And to learn its language, you must first learn to pay attention to the most subtle feedback data it provides. And the very first, most commonly ignored error message is that persistent, exhausting feeling that everything in your life has become unreasonably hard. Let's decode that signal right now. Life is meant to have challenges, but there's a world of difference between climbing a mountain that leads to a breathtaking view and pushing a boulder up a hill only for it to roll back down every night. One builds strength and character. The other just builds resentment. One is a meaningful struggle. The other is a soul-crushing grind. How do you know which one you're doing? This is where your internal guidance system begins to provide what we can call performance data. It's not judging you, it's simply showing you the results of your current programming. The first data point is persistent resistance, that feeling of waking up with a sense of dread, the sensation that your work is like pushing that boulder uphill, that your relationships are like wearing shoes 2 sizes too small. Everything requires immense effort, and nothing seems to flow. This isn't a bad mood, it's a critical data point. Your IGS is flagging a major compatibility error. You are trying to run a program, a career, a belief system, a lifestyle that is fundamentally incompatible with your core operating system, with who you truly are. The river of your life wants to flow in one direction, but you are gripping the rocks on the shore, insisting that your pre-planned route is better. The resulting friction is what you experience as resistance. When you are in alignment, life has a certain ease. Not easy in the sense of being without challenge, but ease in the sense of flow. It's like sailing with the wind at your back. You still have to steer the ship, but the universe provides the propulsion. When you're out of alignment, You are trying to sail directly into a storm, and your IGS is sending up flares screaming, "Wrong way, turn back," through the language of resistance. Consider the story of a young Steve Jobs at Reed College. He was on a clear, pre-approved path to success, but his IGS was sending massive resistance signals. The required curriculum felt meaningless, a complete waste of his energy. So he made a decision that seemed, by all external logic, to be a catastrophic failure. He dropped out. But he didn't leave. He stayed on campus and dropped in on the classes that his intuition was drawn to. One of these was a calligraphy class. In the moment, it was a completely useless, impractical pursuit. There was no clear career path from learning about serif and sans serif fonts. But years later, when designing the first Macintosh computer, that useless knowledge became its defining feature. The Mac's beautiful typography was a revolution, a key differentiator that gave the machine its soul. Jobs himself said, "If I had never dropped in on that single course in college, the Mac would have never had multiple typefaces or proportionally spaced fonts." He didn't have a grand plan. He simply responded to the data. He listened to the resistance error from his IGS, closed the incompatible program of a standard degree, and followed the subtle pull of what felt like flow. If you ignore the general resistance signals, the IGS gets more specific. It starts sending you recurring diagnostic reports. This is the second data point, repetition. The same problem keeps appearing in different disguises. You leave a job because of a micromanaging boss, only to find the exact same personality in your new manager. You end a relationship because your partner was emotionally unavailable, and your next partner is a carbon copy with a different face. You move to a new city to escape the drama, only to find you packed it in your suitcase. This is not a curse, it is not bad luck, it is a mirror. Your IGS is holding up a diagnostic screen that reads, "Error 404, lesson not found." Reinitiating scenario. The universe isn't holding a grudge. Your internal system is trying to get you to learn a specific skill or heal a specific wound before you can level up. The repeating problem is a custom-designed training simulation to help you develop the one thing you need for the next chapter of your life, whether that's learning to set boundaries, valuing yourself, or letting go of the need for control. The simulation will keep running. The pattern will keep repeating until the lesson is learned. The beautiful thing is, the moment you genuinely learn it, the moment you finally set the boundary, or choose a different kind of partner, or respond, instead of reacting, the pattern vanishes. The diagnostic error clears, not because the world changed, but because you debugged your own internal code. Your IGS confirms the lesson is integrated and says, "All right, let's move on." But what happens when you keep clicking ignore on these performance reports? What if you keep pushing against the resistance and refuse to learn from the repeating patterns? The system escalates. It stops warning you about what you're doing and starts warning you about what it's doing to you. It tries to get your attention by draining your power supply. And you might be feeling that drain right now. Think of your personal energy as your phone's battery. What would you do if you woke up every morning after a full night of charging to find your battery was only at 15%? You wouldn't blame the battery. You would immediately know that a hidden app is running in the background, consuming all your power. When you've ignored the performance data from your IGS, it escalates to the next level of alert, a low power warning. This warning manifests as our third and fourth data points, a soul-crushing exhaustion and a profound sense of disconnection. This isn't the kind of tiredness you feel after a challenging workout or a productive day. This is a bone-deep weariness that no amount of sleep can fix. You wake up tired, you go through your day in a fog, and you go to bed tired. Everything feels heavy. This is your system's clearest signal that the way you are living is fundamentally unsustainable. And what is that hidden app, that energy-draining background process? It is the constant, taxing effort of maintaining a performance self. A tree does not get exhausted from being a tree. A river does not tire itself out from flowing. They simply are what they are, and in being so, they are in a state of effortless expression. We humans, however, have developed the peculiar and draining habit of trying to be something we're not. We construct elaborate personas for work, for family, for social media. We contort ourselves into shapes we think will be approved of, all while betraying the truth of who we are. And this performance requires an immense amount of psychic and neurological energy. This is where we can introduce our second layer of understanding, rooted in modern neuroscience. Your brain has a network of regions that work together, called the default mode network. This network becomes active when you're not focused on a specific task, when your mind is wandering, thinking about yourself, ruminating about the past, or worrying about the future. Research suggests that when we are living authentically, in flow and aligned with our values, the DMN is relatively quiet. But when we are living in a state of internal conflict, wearing a mask and worrying about how we are perceived, the DMN can become hyperactive. It is constantly running what-if scenarios, replaying social interactions, and managing the gap between our true self and our performed self. That bone-deep exhaustion you feel is, in part, the metabolic cost of a chronically overactive default mode network. It is your brain, quite literally, tiring itself out, trying to maintain a lie. This neurological drain leads directly to our fourth data point, disconnection. You find yourself feeling increasingly isolated, even when surrounded by people. Conversations feel hollow. You go through the motions of social life, but you feel like a ghost, an observer behind a pane of glass. This happens because genuine human connection is a resonance phenomenon. It requires a clear, authentic signal. When you've been wearing a mask for so long you've forgotten your own face, you are no longer broadcasting your true frequency. People can sense this, even if unconsciously. There's something missing, something not quite real in your presence. And so, true connection becomes impossible. How can anyone connect with you if you are not even there? The universe, your IGS, is fundamentally relational. Everything exists in relationship to everything else. This feeling of disconnection is a critical alarm. It's your system warning you that you've forgotten this fundamental truth. You have started to believe in the illusion of a separate, isolated self, and that illusion is the very definition of suffering. So, your IGS has sent performance warnings, which you've ignored. Now it's sending low-power warnings, which you may be trying to override with caffeine and willpower. What happens when a system is running incompatible software, ignoring error messages, and is about to run out of power? It initiates a forced shutdown. It begins to generate chaos in the external world to force you, finally, to pay attention to your internal one. Sometimes, the only way to install a new, updated operating system is to completely wipe the old hard drive. What if the breakdowns in your life are not the end of the world, but a necessary clearing of space? What if the crash is not the problem, but the beginning of the solution? When you've ignored the performance alerts and overridden the low-power warnings, your internal guidance system has one last resort, to initiate a forced shutdown. This is not a punishment. It is a protective mechanism designed to prevent catastrophic, irreversible damage. This shutdown manifests externally as our fifth and sixth data points, a sudden influx of chaos and the emergence of undeniable physical symptoms. The chaos often feels like the universe is conspiring against you. The car breaks down, the computer crashes, losing an important project. The relationship you were clinging to abruptly ends. The job you hated but provided security suddenly disappears. One thing after another goes wrong, and it feels like your carefully constructed life is being dismantled, brick by brick. But your IGS is not dismantling your life, it is dismantling your cage. It is clearing away the external structures that no longer align with the person you are becoming. We cling so tightly to our plans, our securities, our identities, and sometimes the only way for something new and better to enter is for the old structures to fall apart. A farmer cannot plant new seeds in a field that is already overgrown with last season's crops. First, there must be a clearing. The breakdown is not the destruction, It is the preparation for a new planting. This perspective is echoed in the work of psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl. He observed that it is often in our moments of greatest suffering and breakdown that we are forced to find a deeper meaning for our lives. The chaos is not a sign that your life is over. It is an urgent invitation to discover what your life is truly for. While the external world is being cleared, the IGS sends its final, most intimate, and most undeniable messages. This is the sixth data point. Physical symptoms. Chronic headaches, persistent stomach issues, a knot of tension in your shoulders that never releases, insomnia, skin rashes. Your body begins to speak loudly and clearly. For too long, we have treated the body as a machine that simply carries the brain around. But modern science is finally catching up to ancient wisdom, recognizing that the mind and body are an inseparable, integrated system. Dr. Gabor Mate, a physician and author, has spent his career powerfully demonstrating the link between chronic stress, repressed emotions, the kind that come from a lifetime of not being your authentic self, and the onset of chronic illness. Your body, in its profound wisdom, keeps the score. It absorbs all the stress of your internal conflict, all the tension of your unexpressed truth, and when it can no longer contain it, it begins to send error messages in the form of pain and disease. Pain is not your enemy. Pain is pure information. It is your body's way of saying, with an urgency, your conscious mind can no longer ignore attention. Something is fundamentally out of alignment. We cannot continue like this. When the whispers of resistance and the shouts of exhaustion are ignored, the body begins to scream. And if you ignore the screams, you may find yourself flat on your back, with no choice left but to finally listen. But in the midst of this clearing, this chaos, this shutdown, your IGS doesn't just send warnings. It also begins to send a different kind of signal. As the noise of your old life begins to die down, you might start to notice little glimmers of light, strange coincidences, and subtle clues pointing you in a new direction. Have you been noticing them? After a system crashes and wipes the unnecessary files, there is a moment of profound quiet before the reboot. In this new, cleared space, you suddenly have the bandwidth to notice signals that were previously drowned out by the noise. This brings us to our final and most hopeful data point: synchronicity. Strange, meaningful coincidences begin to occur with increasing frequency. You think of a long-lost friend, and they text you out of the blue. You have a question, and the answer appears in a book you randomly open. You meet exactly the right person with exactly the right connection at exactly the right moment. For years, we've mystified these moments, but we can also look at them through a neurological lens. Your brain has a filtering mechanism known as the reticular activating system. It's the gatekeeper of your attention. You are bombarded with billions of bits of data every second, and the RAS filters out almost all of it, only showing you what it deems important based on your beliefs, focus, and intentions. Synchronicity, then, is not necessarily the universe suddenly rearranging itself for you. It is your RAS, newly programmed by your dawning clarity, beginning to notice the opportunities, connections, and pathways that were there all along. It's like when you decide you want to buy a specific red car, and suddenly you see that red car everywhere. The cars were always there. Your attention has just been calibrated to notice them. Increased synchronicity is a sign that your internal system is coming back online, rebooting with a clearer, more aligned intention. So the warnings are not omens of doom. They are course corrections. The fever is not the problem, it's the body's solution. The breakdown is not the end, it's the beginning of the reboot. The crucial question is, what do you do now? How do you facilitate this reboot instead of resisting it? The answer is not dramatic, frantic action. Quitting your job tomorrow or moving across the country without any internal shift will likely just lead you to recreate the same patterns in a new location. The first and most powerful response is not action, but recalibration. It is the practice of intentional stillness. You must create the space to hear the new operating system as it comes online. You have to turn down the volume of the external noise, the opinions, the expectations, the endless stream of content, so you can hear the subtle internal signal. So instead of trying to fix your life with more doing, I invite you to try this simple, powerful experiment for 1 week. Dedicate just 10 minutes each day to absolute stillness. No phone, no music, no books, no distractions. Just sit with yourself. And in that silence, ask one gentle question. What message is trying to be heard right now? Don't search for an answer in words or grand epiphanies. Search for a feeling in your body. The truth, when you touch it, often registers as a subtle sense of release, a slight relaxation in your shoulders, a deeper breath you didn't know you were holding, a quiet feeling of, yes, that's it. That feeling of resonance, however small, is your IGS communicating with you in its native language. It's the sign that you've touched truth. Once you hear the message, once you understand what's being asked of you, perhaps to set a boundary, to let go of a grievance, to pursue a forgotten passion, the work is simple, but not easy. You must take one small, aligned action. The universe doesn't need you to leap off a cliff. It just needs you to take one step in the direction of the whisper. That single step is what tells your IGS, message received, I am listening. Because that system, your internal guidance system, is not separate from you. It is the deepest, wisest part of you, the part that has always known what is true for you. The signs are not coming from the outside, they are bubbling up from the inside. The ultimate question is, are you willing to trust yourself? Are you willing to honor the data your own system is providing, even when it contradicts what your rational mind thinks is safe or practical? Are you willing to let go of the life you plan to make space for the life that is waiting for you? The signs have always been there. Your own profound intelligence has been speaking to you since the day you were born. And now, you're finally ready to listen. In that spirit of listening, I invite you to share something in the comments below. In a moment of your own quiet reflection, have you ever received a clear message, not in words, but as a deep, undeniable feeling or knowing? What did it tell you? Let's learn from each other how to better understand this subtle, powerful language that is guiding us all home.